made it clear. These guys want to instill fear. They want to tell you that just get over it. It's a fact of life. This is the way it is. She simply has said it doesn't have to be this way. We can't afford 4 more years of this.
Tim Walz sounding like he took a page from the Trump campaign yesterday as he told Pennsylvania voters, we can't afford 4 more years of this.
The embarrassing gaffe hitting in the state's ultimate swing county, where Politico argues, quote, it's likely Walz will have more luck turning out the base in the blue trending suburbs here than trying to sway working class men in the county that is a mix of historically Democratic cities and small town suburbs and deep red rural stretches.
Our next guest knows all about the importance of this crucial swing state. Pittsburgh-based columnist Salena Zito joins us now. Good morning, Salena.
Good morning.
It strikes us, we're talking about this morning, that there's this balance they're trying to strike, the Harris-Walz campaign, of appearing as though they are hope and fresh and change and something new, and painting Donald Trump as the incumbent, but also cloaking themselves in experience. Hey, you know, I've been vice president. Also, Tim Walz trying to appeal to, you know, blue-collar men, but it seems to be the biggest appeal is with deep blue voters.
Yeah, absolutely. So the working class vote is up for grab in Pennsylvania. And, you know, Donald Trump did that really, really well in 2016. But Joe Biden was able to take just enough away in 2020 mainly because of his Pennsylvania roots. And so they are the voters that have hurt the most in this economy. They're the ones that drive the most. So the gas prices have impacted their family. The costs have impacted their family. And I think there's a blind spot among the Democratic strategists and among a lot of reporters is that they think of the working class as only white. And that's not true. Working class Hispanic and working class Black voters vote very much the same. They don't vote along race. That has changed under Trump. They now sort of vote shoulder to shoulder because they live in the same communities and they're having the same experiences. So I think, to Politico's point, Walz would probably be better served in trying to gin up the vote in maybe Montgomery County or Chester County, and not in Lehigh or Berks or Northampton or Luzerne, where there's more of a working class and rural voter concentration.
It's such a great point about the multiracial working class vote and how they vote shoulder to shoulder and not along racial lines. I think Tim Walz appeals more to those ladies with the masks that were scolding people in grocery stores than he does to any of those men who put on boots to go to work in the morning. I want to talk to you. I want to show you this clip from Fetterman, from Senator Fetterman, about talking about Trump's assassination and its impact on voters in Pennsylvania. Listen.
Trump has created a special kind of a hold within the corner, and he's remade the party, and he has a special kind of place in Pennsylvania, and I think that only deepened after that first assassination attempt. I also want people to understand, you know, and it's not science, but there's energy and there's kinds of anger on the ground in Pennsylvania, and people are very committed, and Trump is going to be strong, and that's we have to respect that.
Salena, I found that to be so interesting because I think that people are seeing Donald Trump is willing to risk his life. His voters are saying he's willing to risk his life to, you know, run and change the country and make America great again. I'm not going to be afraid to tell my neighbor or put a sign in front of my house or finally stand up and say how I feel. Is that what he's talking about?
Yeah, you know, and Fetterman, I've covered him since 2005, the first time that he ran for mayor in Braddock, and he won by 1 absentee vote, right? And he's always been sort of the guy who goes off what the Democrats would call call the reservation in terms of speaking the truth about things. He's always been very blunt. And in 2016 2016, if you go back and look at an interview I did with him, he understood that bond between the Trump and the voters. He understood, and we talked about that. He goes, look, it's very real, and my party really needs to pay attention to this. And so he has understood that for 8 years. I'm not shocked to hear him say that. And there has been that sense since Trump was shot here in my home state that, you know, I mean, I don't mean to put it so crassly, but he took a bullet, I can put a sign out, or I can wear my hat. There's less fear of showing where your support is than there has been in previous years.
Agreed.
Salena Zito.
I was going to check in with you, Salena.
Yeah, really
Yeah, always
Pulse of
insightful.
Pennsylvania.
No one knows Pennsylvania better than Salena. Thank you, Salena.
Guys.
All right, now we move to a Fox News alert. Overnight, Hezbollah and the IDF trade rocket fire over the Israel-Lebanon border.
Retired U.S. Army Brigadier General Anthony Tata on the latest developments in Israel. Next.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.